Well, welcome to the Tea with Amanda Roley. I am joined by Coeur d'Alene mayoral candidate Dan Gookin, who is a very highly experienced council member. You've been in office as a city council member with the city for about 4 terms, 14 years.
14 years.
It's a long time.
It's like a marriage.
Yeah. And how has that been working out? Do you liken it to marriage in a good way?
Like any marriage, it has its ups and downs,
Sure.
but you know, I serve the people, so they keep sending me back. I'm going to do their work.
There you go. Well, we're excited to have you here and talk through who you are as a candidate seeking the mayor's office, and give people a deeper look into where you stand on certain issues that are important in the community. We've got our tea piping hot, so hopefully we'll have you spill a little tea for us on those topics.
I didn't know that was I would have worn another shirt.
Another shirt? Oh,
requirement. Spilling tea.
Well, let's get to it. Dan, why now? Why run for mayor now?
That's a great question, because people have asked me to run for mayor almost every time there's been a mayor election since I've been elected. And the thing is, on council, I have a vote and a voice. The mayor is not a member of the city council. The mayor does not vote on the city council unless there's a tie. And the city council, you know, he runs the meetings, or she runs the meetings, and then the council makes the decisions. So people want me in that position. They like what I have to say. You know, last night was a great example. If people saw the meeting, and I was representing the public as best I could and try to get their voices heard. Now, as a mayor, I can do that, but I can't do that at a council meeting. So what happened was, about 4 years ago, we had Jim Hammond, loved Jim Hammond, and he left. He decided to resign midterm. We had to find a replacement. We found Woody, who everyone agrees is a good guy, but we're missing a lot of the leadership that we used to have back in the old days. And that's a problem for me.
What's the key thing of that leadership that you miss?
Number one is representing the council. So if I call up the mayor and I say, hey, I have an issue, is there something you can help me with? I expect the mayor to return my call. I expect the issue to be resolved. And that just, it hasn't happened. So they pushed me again, and this time I decided to step up and put that leadership back into City Hall to basically represent the council, but more importantly, to give them information, because we have not had the information that we used to have. When I first joined the City Council 14 years ago, we had 4 monthly meetings of what's called our Public Services General Works, or the other way around. There were 4 subcommittees that met 2 subcommittees that met 4 times a month. We've met maybe 4 times this year. So the amount of information that's flowing from the staff to the city council is just not what it used to be. In fact, most of the time I learn things about city because I'll see them on the news, I'll read them in the paper, or I'll see them on Facebook. And we should be the first to be informed. And so that's a priority. Getting a policy manual established is a priority, because we don't have one. It surprises a lot of people. A city of almost 60,000 people, there's no policy manual. It's the job of the city council to set policy, so what are we doing if there's no policy manual? And then I want to support...
backtrack to what you were saying about information to city council. That's one of your platforms, is you'd like to have city council and elected leaders get more information. You say, I understand you feel like there's a lack of information being disseminated to council. There is a recent opinion piece that I found accusing you of misrepresenting that council is left in the dark. It claims that you already have access to every staff packet and meeting packet, and that they're calling this critique politician speak. I guess, how would you respond to that?
Well, you know, that person is supporting an opponent, and therefore it's their ideal, rather than promote their opponent, which is what my supporters do. They'd rather attack me. And it's just not true.
So you think it's a political attack?
Yeah, of course it is. There just is not information. There's no involvement with council, not like there used to be when, ironically, the guy who wrote that letter was the city attorney. And so,
is it correct to say that you, so are you saying you do get every staff packet, and you do get every...
We get staff packets, but we don't get information. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the city. And it used to be they would send us something called the heads up. And the heads up would say, hey, there's going to be a dedication at the library. There's going to be an opening of a park. There's going to be a meeting to go out and request proposals. And all that stuff we were involved in. And that hasn't happened in years.
So you want maybe more, so you're maybe getting information, but not as much as you would like to see.
You can't make a good decision unless it's an informed decision. And oftentimes we have stuff thrown in our lap that's been going on for weeks or months, and we are hearing it for the first time.
How would you change this situation then as mayor?
Well, interesting thing is they do tell the mayor all this stuff. So the mayor gets all the information, it flows in, but the mayor doesn't share it with the council. So when I'm mayor, I'm going to share that information from the council, and I'm going to direct staff to share the information with the council. So if there's going to be a controlled burn on Tubbs Hill, I want to hear it from the people who are doing the controlled burn, not read it on Facebook. And that happens right now. So if they're making that accusation, it's not based on anything that's coming from a city council person. We're in the dark. And I don't want council to be in the dark. I don't think the public does either.
And I want to talk a little bit more about, going back to that first question, why now run for mayor? Can you just boil it down for me? I mean, you mentioned people have asked you before. It just seems like that office in general, it's not a coveted position. There's not really a real race to get in that seat. And some candidates say, well, I'm not really needing to be in this role. I mean, where does that come from? There's just not as much competitiveness we've seen for this race.
Really?
No.
Oh, well, no.
I mean, even current Mayor Woody Evers, it was kind of, well, I'll take it on.
No. So we need the leadership, and we need someone to be the voice for the council and the voice for the people, and that just hasn't happened. We need someone with the energy and the knowledge to go in there and do what needs to be done to basically make the council in charge of the city so that they're making decisions on behalf of the citizens they represent, and all that is working smoothly. And probably the number one issue is, or there's a couple I could say, communications is number one. Biggest complaint I get is that people will send an email to the city or they'll call the city, they get nothing back. And that is a big problem. Now, I'm known to respond to emails. I answer my phone calls, I respond to emails. That's not the case right now in City Hall with the current mayor or even with the administration. So one of the issues we want to fix is our budget. We're talking about doing some legislation in Boise to get us a hotel tax. There was a legislator who tried to contact the city to say, hey, I'd be willing to help you. No one returned the call. That's not going to happen when I'm mayor. That's a big issue. And it's like, how can they not grasp this?
Now, I know in another interview that you did on this campaign trail is that you mentioned, I would prefer not to be mayor, but that I will do a good job if I'm elected.
Oh, yeah.
So my question for you is, why should voters invest in a candidate with that mentality of, I wouldn't prefer to be mayor?
I said earlier that what I wanted was to be on city council where I have a voice and a vote. And that's the preference there. The mayor does not have a voice or a vote. So last night's meeting where I led the effort to speak up for the citizens who did not want their neighborhoods interrupted, as the mayor, I couldn't really do that. I can't really make a motion as a mayor to add an item to an agenda. Now, I could do it before the meeting, so I still have that control. But when the meeting goes on, I lose my voice. And that's a big issue for a lot of people who like what I say on city council. So, yes, it is with reluctance that I take the job, but it's a necessary job that needs to be done, and I will step up and do it.
And sticking with that, you kind of a nod to this, with your experience in city government, you also have the slogan for your campaign, proven leadership.
Yeah.
What is one example of your proven leadership that's made a real difference in Coeur d'Alene?
We could just go back to last night. So we have all these people in this neighborhood who do not want access to a new development through their neighborhood. It's a very rural neighborhood. Streets can't handle it. They have come up to us multiple times to say, can you do something? Can you fix it? Well, last night, I put forward the effort to fix it. And the developer seems to be on board with it. So I made the motion to direct staff to go ahead and look for a solution to save this neighborhood. Now that's leadership. When we were doing the budget discussion and we have $1 million in overages on our overtime budget for the fire department, I made the motion to add 2 new firefighters. When the police training facility was in doubt about its fund, and it had the funding, I made the motion to go ahead and proceed with construction of the police training facility. You know,
are you speaking to a track record too?
Yes, of what I have done in order to lead the effort on this, because, you know, otherwise, what would have happened? They all would have just sat there. You need that leadership, you need the knowledge of what's going on, and then the application of it to push forward on these issues. And like I said, I haven't seen that happening from the mayor's seat for a while.
Now, on the flip side of that, if some voters are of the thought that there needs to be new blood in the administration, how would you persuade them that you are the change? Spill the tea. Tell me.
Spill the tea. The new blood. Well, I would say one of the reasons that would work here is that a lot of the old blood, a lot of the people who were running City Hall 20 years ago don't like me. They don't want any changes. They think everything is going fine. And superficially, the city's able to provide the services. But I see problems down the road. And one of the biggest is this lack of communications. And there's another one that there's an indecisiveness right now in City Hall, which really frustrates a lot of people. It frustrated them earlier this month with a decision that the mayor made, or an indecision the mayor made. And someone once asked me, they said, what's the difference between you and Woody? Just tell me, what's the bumper sticker? And it's like, well, I can make a decision. And it's tough. If you want to make everyone happy all the time, you're not going to make a decision. And then you make everyone unhappy. But you got to make a decision. Yes, you're going to make half the people unhappy. But at least you've made a decision and they know where you stand. And that's really important.
Sure. So you're talking a lot about communication. I wonder, aside from that, what would your number one priority be if elected mayor?
Well, yeah, the communication
that
was
is
the
key.
number one.
Okay.
Yeah,
we're talking a lot about it. I just want to give an opportunity.
We also got small businesses, and there's a problem in that sometimes the city gets in a way when opening a small business. And there was one downtown that was going to open for the summer. Our summertime business is tremendous, and there was a goof up in City Hall, and so they didn't get to open. We need to do more to be promotive and less obstructive to the businesses. We can streamline a lot of the processes. You talk to a lot of the developers who want to do this affordable housing stuff. They want to do good housing stock, and they find a stumbling block in City Hall. I think we can fix that. And I know there are people in City Hall who want to fix it, but right now there's no leadership, there's no direction. So you can't really fix it if the people at the top, the mayor specifically who is at the top, is not providing you with that guidance and direction. So I hope to add that. And I know really where things are and where they want to fix. And I've talked to the people who do the job and they want to fix it too. So we just got to connect things together.
And to kind of spin off of that, I mean, growth in Coeur d'Alene, that's one of our coverage areas, just seeing a huge rapid growth, and it continues to grow.
Yeah.
So what steps would you take as mayor to address the need and demand for more housing, but also balancing keeping the small town charm that people love about the city?
Well, the first of all is allowing the developers who want to build the homes that we think are compatible with the area the ability to do that, to not get in their way when they want to do that.
Cut the red tape.
Exactly. Yeah. And make less government. There are always people talk about that. I was part of the committee that was looking at the downtown overlay district, which is the height downtown, the historic charm of downtown. That committee's done just a super job of trying to figure out how do we keep the character of downtown without stepping on private property rights. And I think they've come up with a good solution. Now, I left the committee because I didn't want to steer them one way or another. I want to hear what the people have to think. So my hope is that they bring something back to the city council that we can work with, where we can keep the historic charm of downtown and we can still retain the private property rights of those landowners there who, and a lot of them are really old Coeur d'Alene. They know what it's like. They don't want to destroy it with these $1 million condo towers. So I'm hoping that we have a good solution on that, but it has to be driven by the public.
Do you have an idea, a solution?
Well, a lot of it is with disincentives. So the point is, and one of my big issues is also parking. We need plenty of parking. And I think if you just tie the parking requirement to the building.
But where do you put the parking?
That's not the city's problem. And I mean, right now we have a building coming up downtown that's pretty big. It has 3 floors of commercial development on it with no parking. And that's going to be a problem. It's not really going to be a problem it's going to be a problem for the city and all the citizens, but it's going to be a problem for the developer, because how are you going to sell? Like a mortgage company wants to come in there, where are its employees going to park? We have some parking downtown, but it's scattered. So this is an issue that I think we need to do for them too, is to say, look, if you want to build something huge and hulking, first of all, make it look good, but second of all, have the parking.
Yeah, put the burden on them to find that parking.
Yes, and I think they're amenable to that. I think they would like that. Yeah. They understand.
And as far as growth goes, I know people have been noticing that big change on I-90. Because of the rapid growth, we've seen projects on I-90 to widen the lanes, going into Coeur d'Alene to 3 lanes. I just wonder, what do you think about that?
Well, it's not because we're fatter than we used to be.
No.
So we want to... First thing
is, alleviate, you know what I mean.
Yeah, and that's been on the books for a while. And the problem, of course, they had to cut down all the trees. And now they're going to be taking their dirt on our trail maybe, so that's something we have to work on. But yeah, that was a few years ago. There was a proposal for $800 million worth of traffic infrastructure approval, and the voters voted it down. So we're still looking for ways to get all that stuff done. It is going to be a problem, and anyone who lived in Coeur d'Alene 30 years ago like I did knows that it takes a lot longer to get across town than it used to. And we don't have a lot of east-west arterials in town. We really don't. So there's going to be some problems. Hopefully we can work them out. And that's another thing, is prioritizing these projects. When I first was on council, they were going to do 15th Street. It was going to be redone.
Okay.
They've been putting it off for 15 years.
And why do you think that is?
Well, first of all, they took the money for 15th Street and they put it into McEwen Park. And then they've just been kicking the can down the road. And now supposedly there's plans and there's money that's going to be going toward it. So I'm hoping that gets fixed. Atlas Road needs to be fixed. These are things where we have the plans, but the money needs to come through. State money, we have to apply for the grants. It's a big process. But, you know, I'm like, well, let's get it done. Yeah. And again, leadership.
So it sounds to me, answer me this, do you think the city is doing enough to prioritize and prepare for that future growth in the city?
Yes.
Okay.
We need to stay on top of it.
Okay.
So a few years ago, we doubled our street budget. So street budget used to be $750,000. We made it $1.5 million because we need to keep ahead of the curve. The last thing we want is Coeur d'Alene to drive like Spokane.
And what do you mean by that? Pray tell.
I'm just throwing that at you.
I frequent Coeur d'Alene as well. Yeah. So
Thank
speaking of the budget, though, Coeur d'Alene Police Department has said due to the rapid growth, there's obviously with more people, you have more calls for service, and they've said that there is a dire need for more officers. So when we're looking at the budget as mayor, how would you take steps to guarantee that the police department has the staffing to address those uptick in service calls, the keeping up with pace, while also ensuring that public safety remains a top financial priority?
Yeah, well, our crime is way down in the city. Since Chief White took over in 2014, it's down over 70%. Even
77, that's right.
Even this year, it's
77%.
down like 18%. Crime is down. So they're doing a phenomenal job. The thing is, we have the staffing and we have the budget for the staffing. The problem is turnover. We get a lot of cops who retire. You know, they, like anyone else in first responders, they're going to burn out over time. So we need to keep replacing them, and that's an ongoing issue. So I think we're down like 7 officers now, and we're constantly rebuilding that team.
So you'd support continue to fill those vacant positions,
and
not get rid of or eliminate those positions?
Absolutely not. This has been a problem in the city for years. Okay. Before I was elected, and even after I was elected a little bit, the way that the city hall, I'll say, balanced the budget was by not filling police positions. So you had a Friday night, which can be chaotic in Coeur d'Alene, and you had 2 officers and a sergeant. And that's not enough. So now we're up to what they call the full, according to the FBI statistics, we are up to the full complement of officers. It's very well organized. Morale is back in the department. Everything is good. So I don't want to mess with that trend. I want to keep that going forward. And of course, that's important. It's been important to me. I've been endorsed by the Police Officers Association. I think that means a lot, and I do a lot for our PD.
Is it fair to say you would maintain keeping public safety a top financial priority, even as budget, we're ebb and flowing with that budget concern?
Yes, absolutely. That is a priority. I think there's ways to fix the budget, and I'm eager to get into there because I really want to look at that budget. I mean, after I've been mayor for 3 months, I want to have a meeting and I want to say, here's how much we've cut the budget. Because I think it can be done if you have a mayor who's active and in leadership and giving direction.
What areas would you cut to the budget?
Well, I don't know because, see, as a council member, we're operating at a higher level. The mayor operates at a lower level. Sure. Former Mayor Widmeyer, who used to be an accountant, probably still is, was in there all the time looking at the budget. And that's what I plan to do. And one of the things I want to do to really motivate cuts is to provide an incentive program to the city employees. So if they find a way to save money, we can pay them for that. And when I brought
Isn't that counterintuitive?
it seems that way, but it does work. A lot of big businesses do that because, again, we're at a higher level. We're not down there. We don't know. And sometimes the government mentality as well, there's money for a new air compressor, but seriously, all I really need to do is change a gasket in the old compressor and it'll still work. But since there's money, let's just go out and buy another compressor. And that's wasteful. I don't know how often that goes on, but I talked to city employees and they were like, yeah, if we were incentivized, there's a lot of stuff we would do. But right now they're not incentivized.
Do you think they have to be, though? Do city employees have to be incentivized to bring these ideas forward?
I don't know. Let's find out.
All right.
If it works, it works, and then we're all better for it.
All right. Sticking with public safety, following the Canfield Mountain shooting, under your leadership, are there, I guess, what sort of adaptations would you want to open the conversation to or see within the city to help further protect our emergency responders?
Well, we hope that that was a one-time crazy man type thing, and that's not going to happen again. So, you know, you have to plan for that and hope it never happens. And that did devastate our fire department, very much so. So one of the things that's been suggested actually by a former cop is we need, would be nice to have a chaplain service, because we need that. It would be nice in PD to have a decompression service, because oftentimes when you leave the position of a first responder, it's difficult to make the transition back to civilian. And what you want is you want someone to help you make that transition. So that's something we could look into to make it easier for them. But as far as, you know, being defensive to prevent, I mean, you do not want cops riding with firefighters. That would be a terrible situation to be in as a city. But let's hope that was a crazy guy and that was a one-time thing and it'll never happen again.
Sure. And then let's see. So we talked a little bit about growth. I guess, do you have any crazy ideas in your back pocket as mayor as far as addressing the growth? I mean, it's unstoppable, right?
Well, there is a point where we stop, and right now that's 80,000 people because that's the capacity of our sewer plant. So we can't go much beyond that. The key to growth is density, and the key to density is green space. The more green space.
You're talking growing up, not out.
You grow up, not out.
Right.
And so you can add a lot of density to an area, providing that the infrastructure can handle it, and we got to watch out for our aquifer. That's one thing that they've never really done before, is make it green. If there's a lot of examples of high density development where the green space around it doesn't make it look as high density. Now, what the city's doing now is they're just taking houses and they're squeezing them closer together. Sure. And you can't even plant a tree.
You know, the next window over.
It's the Grey Poupon moment. But you cannot even put a tree between your house and the neighbor's house because it'll never get any sun. And that's not the way you handle growth. So we need to fix that. And a lot of that stuff, we get blamed for it on city council, but a lot of it doesn't go to the city council. It's through what's called the PUD process. Right. It's never really appealed to us. So we can't really see and go, this is terrible. This is sprawl. So you got to get the green space in there.
I want to go back to talking a little bit more about your past experiences. This is a fun fact that I
was young and I needed the money.
I know. You are also an author of 100+ books. Most famously, the DOS for Dummies.
Yes.
How cool is that?
It's really cool.
all the 90s kids are thanking you for your service.
Well, now there are people who are in their 50s and 60s who are like, I remember reading your book when I was a teenager, and that's pretty cool. I still get that on social media.
That's such a cool thing to learn about.
That was the last time I was in this studio. Was probably in the 1990s when those books were really popular, and they're like, this dude lives over in Coeur d'Alene.
Oh yeah, we probably had a lot more people in the building at that time, and man, well, I think things have changed quite a bit, technology-wise, right? Well, I guess my question to you then, in the scope of technology, if Coeur d'Alene City Hall were a computer system, what kind of bugs or glitches would you say are needing some debugging?
Well, see, the thing is, it's government. And you want government, since we're dealing with the public's money, you don't want it to move fast and efficiently. So theoretically, you could have the latest Windows or Macintosh computer and call that City Hall, but what we really want is something a little old and slow and obvious, because you don't want that slick stuff going on. You want people to know what's going on. You want the transparency. You want the openness. What open source is what the computer nerds would call it. We want everything open source. I'm not saying technologically wise, but as a comparison, as an analogy, open source where people can go in and look at the details, see how things work. that's been something I promoted a long time in government. We need to make sure that everyone knows what's going on, and that comes back to my issue about communications. We need to know what's going on. Tell us what's going on. Tell the public what. One of the things we've been trying to get funded for years, and we can't really afford it, is a PR person. Someone can go out there and toot our horn. I mean, we have a BMX track in the city of Coeur d'Alene that's really cool, and we need to let people know about it. There's all kinds of fun stuff that the city is doing all the time. And we just, that's one of my things. Toot your horn. Tell everyone what it is we're doing. Tell them the cool stuff, because they're going to read the bad stuff, in the news. But tell us what the cool stuff is you're doing.
Why is that? You mentioned the PR position. Is that something that maybe if you're elected, your administration could pursue or try
I could
to
do
secure?
It. And that was one thing I thought is it's like, here we have all these council people sitting around with nothing to do. Why don't they do some of the PR? Get the message out. And so we could do it. So I could do it as mayor. I could get on Facebook every day and write an update of what's going on in the city. That's entirely possible, and I plan on doing it.
Can you tell me a little bit more, you touched on this early on, about the policy, like city staff and working with policy. Can you kind of boil down what is the problem and how do you see that being fixed? And I know that comes down to communication. That's a key factor there.
Well, it's the job of city council is to set policy. So what is policy? Policy is the way the city would do things. Right now, without a policy manual, what the city staff typically does is they ask the mayor. And they say, well, what do you think about this? And the mayor will say one thing or another, which is not the mayor's job. Mayor's job is to follow and make sure the policy manual is being followed. Case in point, and as an example, so when Mayor Jim Hammond resigned, there's no state statute, law, code, anything that says how we nominate his replacement, just that council does it. And then how do we fill a vacancy on council? Because Woody McEvers moved up to the mayor seat, there was a vacancy. And we had a big cow about that because we're like, can he vote on his own replacement? Well, my argument was no, because it's not vacant if he's casting a vote. And there was a big tiff. We went back and forth. There were arguments on that. The reason was because there's no policy. If there was a policy manual that said, when there's a vacancy on council, this is what you do. There's no policy manual. There's other things that happen in the city too. Case in point, someone calls me and they say, city asked me to put in a sidewalk that goes from nowhere to nowhere. That's something else I want to fix. So, okay, you have to put in the sidewalk. That is part of the code. But there was a utility in the middle of the sidewalk that shouldn't have been there. So what do? Well, someone just made up something and said, well, since you're putting in the sidewalk, you have to move the utility. But it's like, but that guy didn't own the utility. The problem is there's no policy telling the city staff what to do in this situation. So the solution would be set a city policy that says, if this ever happens in the future, here's how we resolve it. Otherwise, what they're doing is they're making up stuff as they go along, which is not transparent, and it could be questionably legal, because if there's a lawsuit in the future, what can they point to say, here's the rules we were following? I mean, if a city just makes up something on the fly, we can get into a lot of legal trouble. And I want to keep us out of trouble.
What would it take to get this policy handbook in place?
Well, there's going to be meetings coming up. I'm going to make the council work, and they're going to establish a city policy manual. Easiest thing to do is to steal it from somewhere else, and then to customize it to our own needs. And then every council meeting, there's going to be a policy update. Now, if you go to an NIC meeting or a school district board meeting, they will be updating their policy manual, because that's how they work. We're going to follow the same example.
Why do you think it's taken so long?
Just because it's Idaho and it started out and we didn't really need a policy manual because things pretty much were uncomplicated. But as your city grows from, when I first moved here, it was 30,000 and now it's double that. These problems crop up. And I think we're the largest city in Idaho that doesn't have an official policy manual. And then you have policies, you do have policies in the city, so I'm not saying they're void of policies, but there may be a policy in the wastewater department and a different policy in the finance department, and they clash. And what happens when someone has a question about that? What's city staff going to do? They're kind of stuck, and that's our fault for not having a policy manual to resolve that.
Yeah, give some.
This is so boring. I'm glad you're interested.
No, it's interesting because you are very passionate about it. Thank you for talking through that. Now, Coeur d'Alene has recently been in the national news.
Again?
Well, we had the Patriot Front arrests near a Pride event, and then the racial harassment of a Utah women's basketball team during March Madness. So, as mayor, what concrete steps would you take to pursue accountability and also condemn these acts?
Well, I would follow the same example that took place when these things happened. So there was a good and swift reaction to that by leadership in the city at the time. We did pass they call it a hate speech, and I don't really particularly like that language because it's not really hate speech, it's an augmented crime. So if you commit a crime in the city of Coeur and during that time you do something that's a racial slur or something along those lines, you can get an extra charge added. So it's not shading free speech at all. In fact, the guy who shouted the slur at the Utah Women's would not have been covered by that rule anyway, because unfortunately that's freedom of speech. The Patriot Front thing was handled deftly by our police department. And that was, they had an intent to riot. They had all the plans there. And I know that there's some people with the political extremism who say that was wrong, but I think the city handled it correctly. And we would just move forward in the same manner with those things. We have an ugly reputation, and I'm going to try to work to fix it.
So you applaud the efforts of the administration and city leaders in those instances?
Absolutely, yeah. No, we did. We were all pretty much united on that.
So you are one of 4 candidates running for mayor. So if your opponents were sitting here having tea, by the way, how is your tea?
It's good.
Yeah. It's a little sweet. Yeah.
It has a flavor to it. But
I'm sure you get a chance to sip on that.
To the raw, my son sold tea, so I became a tea snob. This is good.
I like it. Well, great. So if we had some other opponents here sitting with us enjoying some tea, what do you think they would say about you, and would they be right?
Well, they're very nice. They're very nice. This has been a very pleasant campaign, and that there's really been no mudslinging or anything other than that one letter to the editor you read. But my experience has been when I am at an event and the other candidates are there and I will say something like anything that I've said to you over the past few minutes, they'll just repeat it.
Okay. What do you make of that?
Well, it's tough to run for office, especially when you don't have a lot of experience with the position that you're running for. And so typically what candidates will do is they will say things that they either think people want to hear, or they'll say things that'll sound good, but maybe not apply in practical real life. So you can say all these wonderful things that you want to get done and things you want to do, but it's like, no, the job is really much more day-to-day, utilitarian, step-by-step procedural stuff. And you can't really move things in a drastic direction. So I have plans of things that I want to do that I've discussed with you based on years of experience working in City Hall and knowing what needs to be fixed, knowing how to respond to the public, to feel the needs of council. And then there's the other fluffy stuff that most candidates will bring up that it's like, okay, that sounds really cool, but let's get down to basics. One of the flaws I noticed that a couple of the candidates who don't really have the experience have said is that, well, we need a voice on council, or I can't wait to be on council. It's like the mayor's not on council. You don't have a voice on council when you're the mayor. You maybe vote to break a tie. But otherwise, you can ask a question. But you can't really, you're going to be a bad mayor if you're going to try to lead debate, if you're going to try to make motions, if you're going to try to manipulate people. And that'll be really obvious to the public. Those mayors don't last long. Yeah. You have to be supportive and not be a dictator. Sure. Well, so we'll see. We'll bring them all in. Yeah. They're all over. Come on.
Come on in. The tea is great. Well, then, leveraging your experience on city council, if there's one thing you could change about how the current administration operates, what would it be?
Well, it's just communications. Okay. And this come up again.
We go full circle back to that again.
I'm trying to be consistent. And that really is when we've done reviews of staff before, and we've done sit-down sessions where we've talked about ways to improve the city. And number one is always communications. It used to be that when I would open up the paper in the morning or turn on the news and I would see something that the city was doing, I would send them a letter and I would say, geez, guys, why didn't you tell us? Now we're going to have to answer the phone calls. And, especially when you haven't read the paper or you're out of the loop and someone says, well, what are you doing on 13th Street? Like, I don't know. You sound dumb. I don't even do that anymore. I don't even ask them anymore because I know the information's not coming. So we really need to be informed. And it's so important. And yet it's so mundane. I'm not going to put that on a yard sign and say, keep the council informed because we haven't, no one's going to pay attention to that. So you just use the word leadership.
There you go. I did want to backtrack. We did learn Coeur d'Alene Police Chief Lee White has announced his retirement.
Yes.
And I know in the past you've praised his leadership. I mean, that's 11-ish, roughly 11 years he's been in the police department. We even talked about his, during his leadership, there's been an overall reduction of crime rates to the tune of 77%.
Yeah.
I did want to hear your thoughts. I mean, we're now looking at a new era with the Coeur d'Alene Police Department and potentially a new era with a new mayor. So what do you think that looks like over the next 10 years?
Well, hopefully we find someone who's just as good or better. I mean, that's obviously, if you want to replace someone, you want to find someone who's just as good or better. You never want to really just have status quo for a while, or you never really want to have someone who's just, filling the seat, keeping the chair warm. When I'm elected, you always have to say when I'm elected. When I'm elected, the goal will be to have a very open process so that lots of people who want to have input on that position, because there have been critics of Chief White. So I want to hear from everyone, what is it we want to see in a new police chief? And then move forward with that. I do not want to have some closed door behind the scenes, here's the guy.
Is there policy for that?
There is no policy. You got it. And so, nice. So anyway, I do want to, and I've heard people are concerned about that, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. They're not making any moves at City Hall because they're waiting for the election. Obviously, if there's a new mayor coming in, they want to keep the new mayor in the loop. I want to make sure it's not rushed. That would annoy me if they did that. So I want to make sure it's a nice, open process. I actually met with a retired policeman today, and that was what he insisted upon as well. Let's keep it a nice, open process, and not do a gimme. And I'm not for that. So let's make sure everyone is heard. Sure. They may not be happy, but I want them heard.
What are key qualities, maybe the top 3 key qualities you'd be looking for in a potential candidate?
I want someone who has the leadership, who has the experience, definitely. You want someone who has that pedigree of like, here's what I've done. And you want to have someone who's supported by the police department itself. I mean, these are the people who have to work under the chief. So we have that. There's also a concern about community. So we want someone who's going to be present in the community, who's going to be visible and available. And that's also been a concern that's been expressed to me.
A couple other questions here as we're coming around
Try to find one
bend.
that I haven't done my homework on.
No, I know.
Okay, ask me something weird. Ask me a veterinarian question.
Well, I do want to speak more to your vision, right? So you've had roughly 14 years as council member. It would be a new leadership role within the city as mayor. So to kind of hone in, boil it down for me. Finish this sentence. If I am elected mayor, I promise to.
Oh my gosh,
And it's a sentence,
my
Dan.
mind reels because I could say lots of things that would be extremely hilarious. So could you say the sentence again so I can get those thoughts out of my head?
Yeah, get those thoughts in. So if I'm elected mayor, I promise to.
See, the first thing I said was dress nicer. So that was the first thing I thought of. I promise to be available, which is what I am now. And it has been a problem of availability, and that's a frustration. It's actually something I'm running on in my campaign. I answer my emails, I return my phone calls. Being available is really important. The mayor is kind of the figurehead of the city. A lot of people think he's a leader of the city. It's really the figurehead of the city. So being available, making those contacts, getting back to people, hearing what people have to say. But my insistence is going to be it's council that actually runs the city. So I will represent them. And someone comes up to me and they say, hey, I got a great idea for da-da-da-da. My response is going to be, well, let's run that by the council and see what the council says. So that's kind of, when I'm mayor, that's what I'm going to present myself as.
Great, sounds good.
Ask the question again. Let's have fun.
Well, ask the question again. Right? No. Now we do like on the Tea to give voters this opportunity to really get to know you beyond the campaign slogan, beyond what's in the voters pamphlet. So I know we talked about a lot, but what is something that you really hope voters key in on about you as a candidate for the mayor's office?
One of the criticisms that people have of me is that I can be kind of raw. So,
okay. What do you mean by that?
Well, I can come across rather bluntly. Okay. I mean, I want to take the information raw, and sometimes I give the information raw. As they will say, I do not sugarcoat things. And to some, that is also an asset because they know where they stand with me. I'm not going to BS you. I'm not going to tell you what you like to hear. I mean, I could work on my delivery a lot, and I could stop being. This is something that pains people because they're like, oh my gosh, he's so rude. But it's like, but no, I'm telling you the truth, and I'm telling you exactly what I think. Okay. And yes, I can work on that, and I can try to be polite and everything, but I really think, you know, for me, I want to hear what it is. And I think people want to hear what it is too. And maybe they're going to look at that and go, oh gosh, you know, this is kind of harsh. But I'm telling you the truth. And that's really what I want to bring to it. And that is a criticism that people do have of me, is that I can come across that way. People who know me know that I'm really a nice guy. You know, the gruff appearance just is the way I come across. I mean, I finally learned how to answer the phone because I used to pick it up and say, what? But I'm getting better. So how's that going to look like if you're elected? I mean, do you see that posing challenges of getting maybe your big ideas across, that sort of thing? Yeah, it's going to be a challenge because I'm going to have to work on it. And I know, but the cool thing is I know I have to work on it. And I'm very sensitive to that when I come across the wrong way. And I work on it. I'm okay with apologizing. If I'm wrong, I'll let you know right away. And I don't want to be wrong, but that's the way I work it. And to kind of just dig a little bit deeper into that as we wrap up here. So let's see, if we are sitting down to tea again 4 years from now, what is something that, if you're elected, what is something that you would want to celebrate looking back at your time as mayor? Well, I want to say that we got the budget under control, that we got the visitors paying more of their fair share of our budget, especially with first responders, law enforcement, fire, and that includes other things too. I mean, there's an impact to our parks as well. So we get the budget under control, that we get a policy manual established so that council's really running everything, and that people are happy with calling up City Hall and getting a response, getting someone to give feedback and be receptive to them, to hear the public. You know, I attended so many meetings where there's people who show up and they're upset about something and they leave upset too. And I don't like that. So I think that's something we could work on. So hopefully 4 years we come back and, you know, the robots are running everything and AI has replaced us. It'll work. Will you maybe write a AI for Dummies book or have AI do it for me? Oh, there you go. Yeah. Last message to voters here on why they should select you for this election. I think I'm going to bring the leadership and the experience to the role. I know I'm ready day one to take it on. I think seriously, I'm ready for it. People have asked me to do it. I think we're gonna win, and I think people are going to be happy with the results. Especially for people who disagree with me, please feel free to reach out and to contact me and express your concerns. I'm happy to meet with anyone. I don't hold any grudges, and God, especially people who've disliked me in the past and all of a sudden suddenly like me, and that's always good to hear. All right. Well, Dan Gookin, thank you so much for meeting with me on the Tea with Amanda Roley, running for Coeur d'Alene mayor. Appreciate you making the time. Thank you for having me.